The red and blue lights cut through the night like a warning meant for only one man, and whatever he was trying to outrun would not wait. If you want the truth before the lights go out, hit like and subscribe. This case only makes sense if you follow every step. Officer Caleb Ward had worked night patrol in the coastal city of Ridgeport for almost 16 years. He knew the roads by instinct, the quiet hours by heart, and the difference between reckless driving and desperation. When the black sedan surged past his cruiser at nearly 30 miles over the limit, there was no hesitation in the speed, no drifting, no bravado, just urgency, pure and sharp. Caleb flipped on the lights. The car pulled over immediately. That alone unsettled him. The driver didn't argue, didn't stall, didn't look back. People who knew they were wrong usually tried to buy time. This man didn't. He rolled down the window before Caleb reached it, hands already visible on the wheel. The interior smelled faintly of antiseptic. Under the streetlight, Caleb saw scrubs beneath a dark jacket. A hospital badge swung slightly with the motion of the man's breathing. His face was tight, jaw locked, eyes fixed forward as if the road were still pulling him somewhere else. This wasn't fear. It was calculation. The driver explained quickly. Too quickly, a pediatric trauma case, a child, no backup specialist available, minutes mattered. Every word was clipped, rehearsed by necessity, not manipulation. He offered credentials without being asked. Dr. Nolan Cross, trauma surgery, Harborview Medical Center. Caleb took the ID back to his patrol car, procedure steadying his hands. Speeding was speeding. 28 over the limit wasn't negotiable, even on an empty highway. Still, something didn't sit right. The database returned clean results. No priors, no flags. The timestamp on the badge photo was recent. The hospital was real. The department was understaffed. Caleb knew that much from calls that ended in ambulances waiting too long. He leaned back in his seat, eyes lingering on the name. Cross. The computer screen reflected faintly in the windshield, and with it came a memory he hadn't invited. A hospital corridor that smelled like bleach and coffee. A small room with too many machines. His daughter, Lena, pale and silent beneath a mountain of wires. A surgeon with tired eyes explaining risks without comfort and hope without lies. Caleb's pulse slowed. The badge photo matched the man in that memory, older now, thinner, but unmistakable. He hadn't seen the surgeon since that winter, since the 6-hour operation that removed what 3 specialists had refused to touch, since the moment a stranger had stepped out of an operating room and quietly handed him his child's future. Outside, the sedan's brake lights glowed red in the dark. Inside that car sat the same man, and somewhere across the city, another child was waiting. Caleb opened his door. The wind off the ocean carried the sound of distant sirens. And for the first time that night, the law felt dangerously incomplete as he walked back to the window and saw the doctor's hand start to shake. Not from fear, from time. Caleb stopped beside the driver's window again. Up close, the strain was impossible to miss. The man's knuckles were pale against the steering wheel, his breathing measured in a way that suggested he was rationing oxygen for thought. "Where is the patient?" Caleb asked, already knowing the answer wouldn't calm him. "Harborview, Pediatric Trauma Bay," Dr. Nolan Cross replied. His voice stayed controlled, but there was a fracture underneath it, the sound of someone counting seconds instead of words. "Internal bleeding, multiple impacts. The window is closing." Caleb nodded once and stepped back, forcing himself to think like an investigator, not a father. Urgency explained speed, but it didn't erase risk. Procedure existed for a reason. He radioed dispatch, requesting a status check on Harborview's trauma intake. No names, no drama, just verification. While he waited, he watched the sedan. Cross hadn't turned off the engine. That detail mattered. Most people, when pulled over, surrendered to the pause. They accepted the interruption. This man hadn't. The car vibrated faintly, ready to bolt the moment permission appeared. It wasn't defiance, it was commitment. Dispatch came back with confirmation. Pediatric Level 1 activated. Surgical team incomplete. one attending surgeon en route. Caleb exhaled through his nose. That should have been enough. It should have ended the stop cleanly. But the investigator in him pushed further. He asked Cross where he was coming from. "A residential block near Glenmore," Cross answered. "I was off rotation. Phone rang. I left." Glenmore sat east of the hospital. Not the fastest route at this hour. Caleb pictured the map in his head, tracing alternatives. There were quicker ways unless traffic forced a detour. "Accident site?" Caleb asked. Cross shook his head. "Didn't get details. Just age and vitals." That wasn't unusual, but it left a gap. Gaps were where mistakes lived. Caleb stepped away again, checking nearby traffic cams from his cruiser. One camera, 3 intersections back, showed the sedan accelerating hard from a stoplight. No other cars nearby. No obstruction. Cross hadn't been delayed. He had chosen speed immediately. Caleb felt the pull of doubt, not about the emergency, but about something else. Why had Cross looked almost relieved when recognized? Why had his eyes flicked, just once, toward the patrol car's camera before settling again? Caleb shut the cruiser door and returned to the sedan. "You ever been stopped like this before?" he asked. Cross hesitated, barely. "No." Another detail filed away. Caleb made his decision, but not the one Cross expected. He didn't wave him through. He didn't write a ticket either. Instead, he keyed his radio and requested a rolling escort, lights only, no sirens citing medical priority. Cross looked up sharply. "You're coming with me." "I'm not letting you outrun consequences," Caleb said. "I'm making sure you reach them." The patrol car pulled ahead. The lights came on. Traffic peeled away instinctively. They moved fast. Too fast for coincidence to stay comfortable. As they passed the third intersection, Caleb caught it. A white SUV parked half a block back, headlights off, engine running. It pulled out the moment the escort passed. Caleb checked his mirror. The SUV followed, not aggressively, not close, just enough to stay in sight. Caleb adjusted speed slightly. The SUV matched it. Whatever tonight was becoming, it wasn't just about a child in surgery anymore. The escort pushed them deeper into Ridgeport, streetlights blurring into long amber streaks across the windshield. Caleb kept his eyes moving. Mirrors, cross streets, reflections in dark storefront glass. The black sedan stayed steady behind him. So did the white SUV. That was the problem. Medical escorts attracted attention but not patience. Drivers pulled aside, cursed, forgot, moved on. This vehicle didn't. It held distance with intent, slipping through gaps others missed, never challenging the lights, never falling back. Caleb keyed his radio without looking away from the road. He asked dispatch to run the SUV's plate. The answer came back thin and fast: temporary registration, recently issued, no owner history in the system yet. A shell. Caleb felt the shape of the night shift change. This was no longer traffic control. It was containment. He slowed deliberately near an intersection where the hospital lay 3 minutes north. The sedan mirrored him. The SUV mirrored them both. Confirmation locked in place. Caleb cut the siren for half a second and swung the cruiser into a narrow service lane, forcing an abrupt change. Cross followed instantly, no hesitation. The SUV hesitated just long enough. That told Caleb everything. The lane spilled back onto the main road 1 block from Harborview. Ambulance lights painted the sky ahead. The emergency entrance was alive with motion. Nurses, orderlies, security. Caleb accelerated and cleared the final stretch, pulling hard to the curb. Cross was already opening his door before the cruiser stopped. He grabbed his bag, movements precise despite the strain. Caleb stepped out and turned, just in time to see the white SUV roll past the entrance without stopping. The driver never looked toward the hospital. He memorized the vehicle's profile anyway. Cross paused at the sliding doors, breath hitching once. "You saw it too," he said quietly. Caleb nodded. "You expecting trouble?" "No," Cross replied, then corrected himself. "I wasn't." He disappeared inside. Caleb didn't follow. His place was outside now, watching patterns, not patients. He radioed units to canvass the perimeter and logged the SUV's description manually. Temporary plates meant delay. Delay meant intent. He stood under the fluorescent wash of the ambulance bay and let memory surface uninvited. Lena's room. The surgeon's hand steady even when his voice wasn't. That same steadiness had cracked tonight, just enough to notice. Caleb replayed the stop in his head. The relief, the glance at the camera, the urgency that felt layered. Inside, a child fought for his life. Outside, someone had taken interest in the man trying to save him. Caleb checked the time. He marked the moment the SUV passed. He marked the route it had taken. 3 hours later, his phone vibrated. A message from an unknown number. Surgery complete. Patient stable. Thank you for getting me there. NC. Caleb read it twice. Relief settled, then slid aside as another thought took its place. If someone had followed Cross to the hospital, it wasn't to stop him. It was to confirm he arrived. Caleb looked down the dark stretch of road where the SUV had vanished and understood the real case was just beginning. Caleb didn't go home after the hospital cleared. He never did when a pattern refused to settle. Instead, he parked 2 blocks away, killed the engine, and watched Harborview's service exits until the early morning thinned the city into shadows and delivery trucks. At 2:14 a.m., Dr. Nolan Cross emerged alone. No escort, no security, just a man whose shoulders finally sagged now that the weight had shifted to someone else. He crossed the lot, unlocked his car, and sat for a full 10 seconds without starting the engine. Hands on the wheel. Eyes closed, Caleb waited. Cross pulled out and headed east, not toward home, but toward the older part of Ridgeport. Industrial streets, storage facilities, closed clinics. Places where cameras aged badly and lighting was optional. Caleb followed at a distance. This wasn't surveillance protocol. This was instinct and a quiet audit of trust. Cross parked near a shuttered urgent care building, lights off. He stayed inside the car, checked his phone, looked up the street, down it, then out again. Caleb stopped 2 corners back and watched through binoculars. No one approached, no SUV. No movement except a flickering street lamp and a stray cat crossing the road. Cross finally exited the vehicle and opened the trunk. He removed a small insulated container. Not medical issue, not standard hospital equipment. No labels, no markings. That detail landed hard. Caleb documented the time, the object, the direction Cross walked around the side of the building toward a rear entrance that had been officially closed for years. Caleb knew because he'd responded to a break-in there once. Found nothing. Too clean. Cross didn't force the door. It opened for him. Caleb's jaw tightened. He moved closer, careful now, every step measured. The door swung shut behind Cross, leaving the street empty again. Caleb circled wide and reached the back entrance. The lock showed fresh wear. Recently maintained, recently used. Inside, the hallway smelled wrong. Not mold, not rot. Sterile, controlled. Someone had kept this place breathing long after it was supposed to die. Voices echoed faintly from deeper inside. Not raised, not rushed. Businesslike. Caleb edged forward until the corridor opened into what had once been an exam wing. Now it was stripped bare except for one room glowing with light. Through the narrow window, he saw Cross place the container on a steel table. Another man stepped into frame, older, heavier, posture rigid with authority rather than care. He wore no scrubs, no badge, just a dark coat and gloves indoors. Caleb caught fragments through the door. Cut it close tonight. I was delayed, Cross replied. Again, a pause. You delivered, the man asked. Cross nodded once. Caleb felt the click inside his chest, the moment a case stops being about what you thought it was. This wasn't a surgeon breaking speed limits for a child. This was a courier, and somewhere between compassion and precision, Cross had crossed into something else. Caleb pulled back into the shadows and keyed his recorder, because now he wasn't protecting a doctor. He was tracking a double life, one that hid behind saved children and empty streets. And whatever was inside that container, it wasn't meant for a hospital. Caleb didn't intervene. Not yet. Arrests made in the dark without context collapsed cases in daylight. He stayed still, breathing slow, letting the scene assemble itself. Inside the room, the heavier man opened the container. Caleb couldn't see what was inside, only the way both men reacted. Not relief, not excitement, precision, like technicians confirming inventory. "Quantity checks out," the man said. "But timing is becoming a problem." Cross removed his gloves carefully. "I told you the margins are shrinking. Trauma isn't predictable." "That's why we chose you," the man replied. "You operate under chaos. You move without question." Caleb recorded every word. The man continued. "But tonight almost cost us." Cross didn't argue. He rarely did. Caleb was starting to see. He absorbed pressure instead of deflecting it. That trait made him excellent in surgery and dangerous anywhere else. "The escort," the man added. "Was that planned?" "No," Cross said. "Pure coincidence." A pause followed, long enough to mean disbelief. "Then you were lucky," the man said. "Luck isn't scalable." Caleb shifted his weight. His boot brushed grit. The sound was small, but not small enough. The heavier man turned toward the door instantly. Silence snapped tight. Cross followed his gaze. His posture changed. Surgeon to sentinel, hands lowered, shoulders squared. Caleb retreated without hesitation, sliding back into shadow as the door creaked open. Light spilled into the hallway. Footsteps followed, slow, deliberate, searching. Caleb ducked into a side room, heart steady, mind racing. He noted exit routes, windows boarded, one service stairwell partially intact. The footsteps stopped. The man's voice carried softly. "This building is supposed to be dead." Caleb waited. Cross spoke next, closer now. "Probably a squatter. They drift through here sometimes." A lie, but a plausible one. The footsteps resumed, then faded. The door closed. Caleb didn't move for a full minute. When he finally withdrew, he didn't go back to his car. He left the area on foot, looping twice, switching streets, letting the city scrub him from the night. Only then did he drive. At home, Caleb laid the case out the way he always did, not on paper but in sequence. A surgeon with unmatched access, pediatric cases, emergencies that justified movement. A container moved after surgery. A closed clinic kept alive for off-book transactions. What moved through that city wasn't medicine. It was time-sensitive, rare, likely biological. Caleb accessed internal databases he wasn't supposed to touch anymore. Old task force records, smuggling rings disguised as research groups. One name surfaced repeatedly in footnotes and sealed summaries. Northline Biomedical Logistics, defunct on paper. Dissolved 5 years ago after a whistleblower vanished mid-testimony. The heavier man matched one archived photo, older now, heavier, but the posture identical. Caleb leaned back, jaw tight. Cross wasn't just involved. He was essential. Caleb's phone buzzed again, a message from Cross. "We need to talk, not at the hospital. You saw more than you should have." Caleb didn't respond. Instead, he pulled on his jacket and checked his weapon. Because the moment Cross realized he was being watched, the rules had already changed. And this time, the next move wouldn't be surgical. Caleb chose the meeting place carefully. Neutral ground was a myth, but exposure still mattered. He texted Cross a location wrapped in glass and light, a 24-hour ferry terminal cafe overlooking the bay. Cameras at every corner, constant foot traffic, 2 visible exits, 1 hidden service corridor, and security that responded fast but not curious. A place where violence was inconvenient and silence impossible. Cross arrived alone. Daylight stripped away the last illusion. He looked smaller now, older, the kind of tired that lived behind the eyes and never clocked out. He didn't order coffee, didn't touch the menu. He sat with his hands folded, posture straight, scanning reflections in the glass wall more than Caleb's face. "You followed me," Cross said quietly. Caleb didn't deny it. "You let yourself be followed." That landed harder than accusation. Cross closed his eyes for a brief second. When he opened them, something had shifted, resignation replacing control. "I was hoping you'd stop at gratitude." Caleb leaned back. "Gratitude doesn't explain locked buildings and midnight deliveries." Silence stretched between them. broken only by the hum of vending machines and the distant churn of water against steel. "They're tissue samples," Cross finally said. "Ultra-rare pediatric mutations, tumors, marrow fragments, blood derivatives that don't repeat. Some of these conditions appear once in a generation." He swallowed. "Research labs would kill to study them." "So would private buyers," Caleb replied. Cross nodded. "Once, no argument. They came to me 3 years ago," Cross continued. "Not as criminals, as accelerators. They said regulation was the real killer, that cures died in committee rooms. They offered funding, equipment, access." His voice tightened. "I told myself I was shortening suffering." "And now?" Caleb asked. "Now I'm complicit," Cross said. "If I stop delivering, the research vanishes, the trials collapse, and the patients I already helped." He didn't finish the sentence. Caleb leaned forward. "You don't save lives by selling pieces of children in secret." Cross flinched, not defensively, but in recognition. "I know," he said. "I just didn't know how far I'd gone until it was behind me." Caleb watched him carefully. This wasn't arrogance or greed. This was erosion. A man who crossed a line one rational step at a time until the ground disappeared. "Northline Biomedical isn't dead," Caleb said. "It went underground, and you're their most valuable asset." Cross's jaw tightened. "They're expecting a major transfer tomorrow night, larger than usual. Final stage samples." That was the opening. "Then you don't run," Caleb said. "You help me end it." "They'll disappear," Cross replied. "They always do." "Not this time," Caleb said. "Because this time they stepped into my life." The word family didn't need saying. It was already there. Caleb stood. "You're going to wear a wire." Cross's eyes widened, breath catching. "Not today," Caleb added. "But soon." Outside, a fairy horn sounded, long, low, irreversible. Cross stared at the water. "If I cooperate, I lose everything." Caleb met his gaze. "You already did. What you choose now decides what survives." Cross nodded. Slowly, neither of them noticed the woman at the counter who hadn't ordered in 20 minutes. Her phone lay face down, recording through mirrored glass, capturing every reflection. Northline already knew, and they weren't going to negotiate. The transfer was scheduled for 11:40 p.m. Caleb made sure of that before anything else. He confirmed it through Cross, then confirmed it again through records Cross didn't know still existed, shipping manifests buried inside obsolete hospital software, mislabeled as equipment disposal. Northline didn't erase data, they hid it under boredom. The drop location was the same closed urgent care, predictable, arrogant. Caleb coordinated quietly. No sirens, no uniforms on approach. 2 unmarked units positioned wide. 1 surveillance van parked 3 blocks out, pretending to be a utility crew. This wasn't a raid, it was a net. Cross arrived first. He carried the insulated container like it weighed nothing, but his steps said otherwise. Every few seconds, his eyes checked the dark, not for police, for permission to abort. Caleb watched from across the street, finger resting near his radio. He let Cross walk in alone, let Northline believe their control still held. Inside, the heavier man was waiting. Same coat, same posture. 2 others stood near the back, younger, alert, hands never idle, professionals. "You're late," the man said. "Traffic," Cross replied, true enough. The container opened. The man inspected the contents, then smiled, thin, satisfied. "Final delivery," he said. "After tonight we move operations south. New channels, cleaner." That was the signal. Caleb keyed the mic once, short, sharp. The lights came on all at once. Doors blew inward. Commands filled the space. The younger men froze, calculating, then surrendering when the math failed. The heavier man reached inside his coat. Caleb was already moving. He closed the distance fast, knocking the man's arm aside before it cleared fabric. The object clattered across the floor, not a weapon but a phone. A kill switch. Too late. Units secured the room. Cross stood motionless, hands raised, eyes locked on the container, not fear now but grief. For what he'd become. For what he'd nearly normalized. Outside, the white SUV appeared again, too slow, too late. Another unit intercepted it cleanly. The network collapsed in under 12 minutes. By morning, Northline existed only as evidence. Cross cooperated fully. Testimony, records, access codes. His sentence would come later, reduced but not erased. Accountability mattered. So did context. Weeks later, Caleb stood in a hospital corridor again. Different floor. Different reason. Lena laughed behind a glass wall, arguing with a nurse about discharge instructions. Alive, stubborn, real. Cross passed him in the hallway, escorted but calm. They exchanged a look. No gratitude, no forgiveness. Just closure. Caleb returned to patrol after that. Same roads, same hours, different weight. Justice, he'd learned, wasn't clean. It was deliberate. Sometimes it meant stopping a man. Sometimes it meant letting him choose who he'd be next. If you made it to the end, stay with us, subscribe and hit like so you don't miss the next case. And tell us this: do you believe redemption should reduce a sentence, or only the guilt that follows?